Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Happy Saturday night. We got a little update. Will Howard's dominance, what he's meant to the program thus far. A little bit of testing news. They did their testing this week through their first cycle to see where guys are at. So we go a little bit of that. And we're going to get into maybe a little bit of Michigan stuff. We're going to take your questions as always. We appreciate you guys kicking it with us this Saturday night. I hope you guys are having a great weekend. Again, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Those are all huge for growing the channel. I think this is going to be a great episode because you guys make it one. It's a big show because you guys make it a big show. So thank you guys for kicking with us on your Saturday night. It's a little cold and snowy in Ohio, so we appreciate you guys being in here. Nevada, we're going to get right into this real quick. Talk to some people today about Will Howard. People that are very, very, very much in the know, and they were like, he is humongous. He's very, very athletic. And he's just a great guy. He's a really natural leader. Again, Devin obviously is going to have a say in things about winning the quarterback job, but Will Howard is much older, much more veteran, much more experienced. Obviously, he was brought in for a reason via NIL in Kansas State. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do in Chip Kelly's offense. I know you and I were watching some film, trading it back and forth, some of the stuff that they can do with this kid. They're going to run this kid for sure. And I'm just super excited about what he can do. But the leadership thing is interesting because he's the most veteran quarterback that we've had in a long time. Like, we don't have many guys that are, true seniors making it, because we've had Dwayne Haskins take off after 3 years, Justin Fields after 3 years, CJ after 3 years. And again, those guys were all leaders in their own right. But when you're older, more veteran, it's just different when you get to be kind of at the end of your career, what it means. Again, I think this kid's playing for a lot. This kid's got a very volatile draft projection. He could be a first rounder. He could be fifth rounder, depending on how this year goes. What have you heard about Will Howard that makes you excited, just in terms of what he's going to bring to the 2024 Ohio State offense?
Well, for me, it's always about, like, you can talk about guys being good, and you can talk about how they project, and you can talk about how they were rated, or you can talk about their stats, or you can have opinions or whatever it is. But I've always said the players know who the players are. So when you talk to the players, there's no BS. There's no, I'll say this, or you generally 99.9% of the time, if you talk to players and you hear it from more than one guy, so you're not just getting one guy who's like his friend's opinion or something like that. If you hear it from multiple people that this guy's a horse, this guy's a leader, this guy's just got complete command of the team, this guy just commands respect. When you hear that over and over and over again, you pay attention to it. And that's what you get when you talk about Will Howard. And, it's always a delicate dance when you bring a guy in. You talk about the other guys leaving early, being third-year guys or being younger guys. And, Will cut his teeth, but he cut his teeth outside the program. So it's not like he came in with this class. It's not like he grew up with these guys. It's not like they've gone to war with him over and over again. So for him to come in, middle of, or beginning of January, middle of January, whatever it was, and in the scope of 5 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever it is, command this kind of respect from the other players really got my attention. And is that determinative of who's going to be the starting quarterback? Is that determinative of success? No, but I think it's if we were going to have success with him, if he was going to be the guy, this is what you'd want to hear. And everything that you'd want to hear about a guy, you're getting on Will Howard, and you're getting it in abundance. And I'm talking about from guys that catch the ball from him, the guys that are on the offense from him, guys that are on the defense that are lining up against him. I mean, these are the guys that know. And I'm not talking about scrubs, something. I'm talking about people that are right there, and they all love Will Howard. And I, to me, it's got my attention to the point where I was excited about Will Howard when they got him. I was excited about the fact that he was the first choice of USC and Ohio State, and two of the best quarterback whisperers in college football. But now that I hear from the players, it's taken my excitement level to just another level, because I just think he's I really think he's got it. And when you have it, big things can happen in 2024, and I'm predicting they're going to.
Yeah, I think that the players know who the players are. Again, when they've been around him for a month now, training, working out. These guys do a lot of work kind of on their own schedule, where they're doing throwing and catching when they can get used to the Woody Hayes. Unfortunately, today there was a camp in the Woody, so the guys couldn't throw. But These guys like to throw it and catch it, and they love him and Julian Sain. Those are the two guys that they glow the most about. Julian is literally, it was described as a computer. He's literally like a computer back there. Fast processor. He's not like I tell people, like he's not a big kid, but like Aaron Rodgers isn't the Hulk either. So, I think that if you can read a defense, protect yourself, not take shots, again, it's an art to play quarterback and protect yourself and not take the kill shots. Cause I think that that's something that some young quarterbacks don't understand. And that's why their careers are shortchanged, because they try to stand in there and be tough, and you got to know when to give it up and dish the ball and throw it away and just protect yourself. But again, the game has been totally reworked over the past 15 years to protect the quarterback. And so a guy who's not quite as big, like Julian Sain, has a much greater chance of huge success, just because he doesn't have that monstrous stature that Will Howard has. And Will Howard is a guy who is a total freak of nature monster. Again, I think that, I'm excited to see him in Chip Kelly's offense. Again, I've watched a lot of UCLA tape. I think that with a guy like him who's got wheels, and you look at how he could run at Kansas State last year, it's going to be a whole new element of our offense that I think that teams have played us over the last, since Ryan took over. They haven't really experienced it. With Justin, obviously Justin could break plays, long runs, just because he was so fluid and so athletic. But CJ just refused to run. And obviously Kyle McCord didn't have the wheels to run. But I'm really excited to see what this guy can do running. Nevada, what is running the ball with the quarterback going to add to our offense this year?
Well, it's just going to, we've talked about this before, but the entire predicate for the Chip Kelly offense is the triple option. It's the three legitimate alternatives off of every play: a handoff to a running back, the quarterback running, or a pass option. And when you have that, it just stresses the defense to no end when they can't just, take one of those things away. And he'll attack the line of scrimmage with that quarterback. We run to the line and then look at if he's got a pass, he'll pull up and throw it. If not, he's just going to run. And when you've got a guy like Will, he's just a tank. He can take those shots. He's durable. He's a guy that's physically built for a game like that. And it's interesting about Julian Sain, though, because like when I saw Julian play at the Elite 11 and play in high school, he looks bigger. I know he's only listed at 6'1", but he doesn't look small. He's got good command. He's up on his toes. He just looks bigger in the pocket. So I was actually surprised because I thought he was like 6'3". And I looked at his height and I'm like, man, this guy's only 6'1", but he doesn't look that way. He doesn't look small. He doesn't look slight. He's got a decent frame on him. And he's another guy that's willing to, tuck it and run it. And I think they're going to need that. But in Chip Kelly's offense, it's triple option. It's the triple option every play. You may have subtle differences off every play, and they're going to try to give you the same look and try to do multiple different things with the blocking, with the routes. But on every play, it's going to be a triple option. And that, as a defensive guy myself, and I'm a defensive coordinator at heart, that is your nightmare. That's your ultimate nightmare, is defending that, because it's just so hard to defend. And that's what Chip's going to do, and Will Howard's the perfect quarterback to do it with.
Yeah, I think he's going to be an offensive lineman's dream, just because of how well he can move around, how big he is. He's going to be a guy that if someone lets someone loose on the edge or in the middle with a defensive lineman, he can shake him off. He can outrun him. So it's going to be exciting. Again, I talked to some guys, and they said in these workouts, they're doing a lot of throwing. These quarterbacks are all trying to develop chemistry with the guys they're going to be throwing with. So that's Julian, that's Devin. That's Will, and again, they've got good camaraderie. It's not like they're all at war with each other, because sometimes that does happen in position groups. But this team's got a good buzz about it. Like that's the thing. Like with Trey, kind of taking it to the next level and recruiting a guy to play his position, like Quinshon Judkins, like that doesn't happen. In terms of some of the testing stuff, Carnell Tate's a freak. Carnell Tate almost touched 11 feet in the broad jump, which is excellent. Obviously, I talked about Julio Jones last week. He had an 11.3 broad jump at the combine, which is like 7th best of all time. Carnell's he was right at 10-11. So he's 4 inches off from Julio. And as he trains, he's going to get bigger, stronger, faster. I think there's a chance he could hit that 11 mark. JJ was right behind him. They had the 2 highest broad jumps on the entire team in this round of testing, which is, again, a freshman and a sophomore out testing guys that are seniors because they're just that freaky and that explosive. But Josh Simmons continue. He is just a monster in the testing ranks at the Woody Hayes. Again, the way this works is they test generally at the beginning of whatever they start to like call a 6-week cycle or whatever. They'll test at the beginning, go through the cycle, and then test at the end just to see what the improvements were. And the thing that was interesting this time is there was a bout of bronchitis where a lot of guys were sick. Kind of in the middle of this, guys literally missed like a week of training. So some of the numbers were a little misleading because guys had to miss. They were probably still feeling a little physically weak from the bronchitis. So again, I think they're going to retest them again after spring when they do their next cycle. So some of the numbers were misleading. I think some guys that would have made pretty substantial improvements kind of were level just because they missed training. Again, if you miss training, it's really hard to make that up. But again, that happens this winter in Ohio. People get sick. You're going to class and you're around sick people all the time. So, but I think that we've got a really, really talented group of guys. I think the offensive line is going to surprise people because, when I'm hearing how these guys are doing physically, there's nothing these guys can't do. These guys are physically as gifted as a lot of lines that we played on. Maybe not the top tier. I still think that as much as people hate on the 2021 unit, that's probably the most talented unit that we've had in a long time because you're starting Paris at guard, DeJuan. So you have 2 NFL, rookie starters at tackle. Then you have Nick Petit and Thayer, who also started as rookies in the NFL at tackle, and Luke Whippler, who also started as. So, I don't know the last time we've had 5 guys on one line start as rookies in the NFL, but that was one that did. But this group there's a lot of talent. And the thing that I love is there's a lot of competition. So when you have guys like Luke Montgomery, George Fitzpatrick, Tigra, these guys all battling for that right tackle spot or potentially the right guard spot, depending on who's the best pass blocker. As of this moment, if you put a gun to my head, Josh Schreier is our best pass blocking right tackle. But we're going to start spring practice, and you're going to get to see these young guys, and Zen Mikulski, who's an older guy, he's going into year 4, go against Jack Sawyer and JT every day. And again, that's going to be the greatest evaluation of all time for Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and Justin Fry, Brian Hartline, just because it's not like, he took his set against JT and the other guy's not as good. Like we have 2 defensive ends that are preseason All-American caliber guys that could, with big years, could go in the first round. So every day is going to be, it's going to be like the gladiators, in front of like Julius Caesar. It's going to be like one of those days when you're playing right tackle against Jack and JT, because those guys do not play around and those guys practice very hard. So they're going to get after these guys. Nevada, what are some of the battles in spring practice that you're most itching to hear about?
Well, we've talked about the right tackle, right guard stuff, kind of ad nauseum, and that obviously is going to be interesting. But, the other linebacker spot, you've got Cody Simon, who's got a hammer lock on that. But, they want CJ Hicks. They just signed CJ Hicks to a big NIL deal, keep him around. They believe in CJ Hicks. They want CJ Hicks around. But can he beat out Sonny Styles? Can he beat out Gabe Powers? What are they going to do in that spot? And I think that's going to be really interesting because when you look on the defense, maybe an interior defensive line position that you've got open, but we don't have many holes or question marks on the defense. But that other linebacker spot, who's that going to be? Will CJ Hicks, finally fulfill that amazing potential? And look, I know Ohio State believes in him, even if some of the fans don't, and even if it's kind of hard to see because when he's been out there, it's not obvious from what you see when you watch him out during games that he's the truth. But they really believe in him. They're really invested in him. They're invested in him financially. They're invested in him with time. They're invested in him, emotionally. They're invested in every way they can in CJ Hicks. So I'm going to watch that other linebacker battle, and that'll be one of the things that I really keep an eye on through the spring. I think that's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I think the linebacker spot opposite Cody Simon, and again, the beauty about Cody is he's old. He's old. He's been through wars. He's beat up. He's had a bunch of surgeries, so he's not going to do a ton this spring. So he'll do some work, I'm sure, just because it's his first run starting. But this is going to be a real opportunity for James Laurinaitis to put a stamp on this defense, put a stamp on this linebacker room because he's got CJ Gabe Powers, who are probably, I'd say, 2 and 3 in the room. And then the big question is, what do you do with Sonny Styles? Because I just think Sonny is ultra athletic. He's a fish out of water at safety. They need to move him down to Will and have him play next to Cody Simon. Again, that's the guy, if you say, Kirk, you're designing the defense, who you put at Will linebacker, say Sonny all day, every day. maybe put him at on first down, put him at Sam linebacker, who he lines up over the slot receiver, the Sam linebacker / nickel. If it's a heavy rundown, put him out there. Otherwise, leave Jordan Hancock out there at nickel and put Sonny in at will. I think and what Will means is weak side linebacker. Mike means middle linebacker, and Sam means strong side linebacker. Strong side linebacker is generally the same as a nickel back in this defense. But they did that a lot with Sonny last year, and I thought that was a good spot for him, because he's the guy that can handle a slot guy in space. You get physical with him. Obviously, he can't. If you're playing a great slot receiver, it's going to be hard for Sonny to stay with him just because he's so big. But he can jam him and knock him off his route, which is like really if I'm Sonny, I'm nose to nose with that guy and jacking him, because Sonny's got exceptionally long arms and he's very strong. So if he touches one of these slot guys, they're probably going to die. I'm going to get into we got a super chat. Kevin McQuaid, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, Nevada. Thoughts on DeWine? I saw this today, trying to ban a college player prop bets. Shout out to my bro Carlugi. So proud of you fighting the good fight. Go Bucks, Nevada, OH. I saw this today. This is interesting. So he's trying to ban prop bets in Ohio, which again, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's like there's always going to be like an offshore, like I don't know. Your thoughts, Nevada? Is there going to be a ban on prop bets? Do you ever do prop bets? I mean, I never even thought to do those, but I could see plus minus touchdowns, whatever. Your thoughts?
Did you really just ask me if there's some form of betting that I don't do or something like that, Mr. Barton? Right there.
Okay. That was the dumbest thing I've ever said in my life. I know that you probably bet with your kids on over under what time the DoorDash guy gets there with the strawberry milkshake and the double cheeseburger. I mean, I get it. You are Billy Walters' best friend, disciple, one of those.
No, I'm a degenerate gambler. Billy's a successful gambler. I'm a degenerate gambler. But yes, player props are fun. Yes, we do player props a lot. They're, especially if you're betting and you're like, I just have a feeling G. Scott might get some activity this week. Let's bet G. Scott on receptions or something like that. But no, I think the players, the way that I understand what DeWine's thinking. I think that would be the easiest way to kind of influence things. And they've had stuff like that where people, there was a famous one in the NBA with Draymond where the rule on a player prop is the player's got to play, and Draymond ran out in the court to start and then left after like 10 seconds and took it off, and there was all these huge bets on the under on points and rebounds and other things on Draymond Green because people were just killing it on that. So I can understand why DeWine would want to. It's harder to influence a team game like football, but influencing something like an individual player prop would be a little bit easier. So I get it. Intuitively that makes sense to me. Is it practical? Not sure, but I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy talk at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's like a over-under on catches, and you can get to some kid, and again, it's probably not going to be a kid at Ohio State. It's going to be some kid who doesn't have because our starting receivers have big NIL deals, so they're not going to be, dropping balls and alligator arming balls, plus or minus, 3 catches. I mean, I could see that at like the low levels, because again, that's where I think a lot of this really goes on, is where you're down at some smaller school, the classic, Michael Franzese, who a lot of you guys probably know. He's got a great podcast. He was in Goodfellas. He was an underboss for the Gambino crime family. He would come to Ohio State every year and talk about gambling, and they'd have us in like the Shot and Scene Center, and it'd be every athlete would be there, and Ohio State would hire him, and he'd go through, this is how it really works. Like, it's, this is how we shave points. This is how we get people into it. And the thing he'd always say is like, look, once you get into this, there's no getting out. So if you think you want to go make a quick couple grand by missing a couple shots in basketball, or taking a whatever, like, you don't just get to like do it one time. Like, these guys own you, and they know that. So again, it's like they always kind of prey on the guy that has the new baby mama, doesn't have enough money for Huggies and formula and whatever. So again, it's a scary thing. I mean, I can see what Mike DeWine's doing, but I just feel like if they're gonna get to you, they're gonna get to you. And you just gotta educate these guys and tell them, like, look, dude, like, if you want to shave points, man, it's a crime. I mean, guys go to jail for that. I mean, it's not. Scooter McDougal at Toledo was my age, played at East Cleveland Shaw, and he got busted for shaving points, man, and it was not a pretty ending at the end of it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, but they let the wolf into the hen house with organizing the gambling. And again, I get doing it just because when all the money's going offshore, you might as well be able to like make your own money on it locally in Ohio. So I'm fine with it, but you got to educate these kids, man, because the people that are doing this stuff with you are not good people. Chocolate chip Scoochie, thank you for the deuce. Need to put CJ on the edge already. See, I don't know. I don't know if he's big enough to play the edge. Again, excuse me. CJ is a pretty much prototypical, will linebacker to me. But I just don't think that he's a guy that could hold up at D end. I don't think he's big enough. Now, Sonny could be. If Sonny really started eating the peanut butter and jellies and got up to like 245, 250 at 6'5.5" or whatever he is, like that guy could play D end all day. But I just don't know if CJ can. And again, maybe he can. Maybe I'm dead wrong. But I've stood next to the kid, and he's not like some guy where I'm like, oh my god, he should be down. Like you stand next to Jack Sawyer or JT, that's a whole different ball of wax now. But I don't think CJ's big enough to play the edge. And again, but it's go time for him now. I mean, he's been here for 3 years, minimal production, special teamer, 5-star guy, and now. That spot's wide open. Like the two guys that I thought did a really good job. Tommy Eichenberg was obviously the linebacker of the year in the Big Ten, All-American type guy. Steele Chambers, I thought was a really, really workman-like dude, really good player. They're gone. And Cody has kind of been the first guy in, and he's a guy that, James said, and I thought Cody should have played more last year, and James said the same thing, because Cody was really effective when he was put in, when guys were hurt, when Tommy was really dinged up at the end of the year. It was hard to watch him against Michigan because he was so hurt, and I knew that. But he's out, and again, I respect him. He's a warrior. He's out there. I respect the hell out of him being a warrior and being out there fighting. But man, when you can't lift your arm and you got to tackle Blake Corum, it doesn't really end well, and it didn't. So, but it's go time for CJ, man. Nevada, any thought to putting CJ Hicks on the edge as a defensive end?
Yeah, I think it's a decent idea, but I'm not sure how practical it is. I agree with you. To me, Sonny seems like a much more logical. I've said it many times, but kind of the Baron Browning role. Baron Browning was a guy that I thought was criminally underutilized at Ohio State, and now, I mean, I don't know how much money he's making in the NFL or how much money he's going to make in the NFL, but it's going to be a bunch. And coming out of Ohio State, there was nothing about him that screamed like dominant NFL player. I mean, he had all the physical ability, but that's kind of what Sonny is. So no, for CJ, I agree. I think he's a classic real linebacker, and he's a guy that can cover. He's a guy that moves really well. You see him playing 7-on-7. He's a guy that can cover wide receivers in 7-on-7. But like I said, he's got to put it together in football. But it's to me, it's just so interesting. I mean, I'm telling you, Ohio State really believes in CJ Hicks. They really, really believe in CJ. I can't emphasize that enough, because I would have thought, given his situation, given the guys behind him, given the guys they have coming in, that they'd be like, oh, doing stuff for CJ, but they wouldn't be like, throwing the bag at him. But they're throwing the bag at him to keep him. So they want him around. They believe in him. They want him for the future. And as a result, that definitely got my attention. And you made the great point about Cody being an older guy, not going to play, all that much this spring. So CJ's going to get a lot of time to get some burn, and that's a guy to keep an eye on for sure.
And I don't think he can afford to lose Cody. I think Cody's a guy that has got to run that defense. He's got to work with James. He's got to run the show, and he's very valuable. Because again, I think Gabe Powers can do it. I mean, James Laurinaitis loves Gabe Powers, but do you want to have two guys with 0 career starts out there, or do you want a guy who's a veteran, who's been through a lot of football, played really well? And again, Cody's a guy that we've been talking about, it seems like, for like 4 years now, because he was a monster when they did testing a few years ago. I mean, he was like a 4.52 guy, big, ripped up looking dude, and then his shoulders gave out. I mean, it's hard to have that breakout when literally you have to have double shoulder surgery or whatever. It was something pretty significant where he just, the season was like a lost cause for him. But the talent is there, and he's an explosive dude. I think he's obviously more explosive than Tommy, and maybe even Steele Chambers. But again, he's got to produce like that. This is an interesting one. Andre Duke, thanks for being an Ultra member. Eric Bieniemy to UCLA as a 2-year deal to be the OC and associate head coach. Very, very interesting hire. Again, obviously, he's a guy that is he might be the most polarizing coach in football because there's some people that, why doesn't he get a head coaching job? Why does he get a sniff? And then there's some people like me in Nevada that say, well, he's a scumbag. Like, why would you ever want that guy anywhere near your program? There's a reason why he floundered around in the NFL. He was the Chiefs OC, but he wasn't the play caller. So if you're the OC, but you're not the play caller, are you really the OC? But he obviously the music stopped in the NFL. He did not have an offensive coordinator job in the NFL. So now he goes down to college to keep working. He's going to work for Deshaun Foster, obviously the great UCLA running back who had a great NFL career. Nevada, I wouldn't say you're surprised by it just because, but this is a guy that for whatever reason people thought would be like a hot name. He's never been that just because I think he's a turd of a human. Your thoughts on Eric Bieniemy returning to college at UCLA? Because we're going to see these guys.
Well, I think it just goes to show you kind of where Bieniemy really is at. I mean, people were talking about Bieniemy as being a guy that should be on the short list for NFL head coaches, and now he's the OC at a UCLA program that's absolutely going nowhere. UCLA program. I'm not saying they're circling the drain, but nobody's looking at UCLA and buying the UCLA stock right now. It's going down. Yeah. So I think it's really interesting. I think it's more validating of what I've always believed about him. I've known him for a long time, since he was in high school, and the stuff's always been out there on Eric. And there's a reason why he wasn't getting these jobs. And like you said, it's character does matter. And at some point, you just can't have a guy like that in a position in control of a multi-billion, $6 billion asset like an NFL team. But for him to fall that far to UCLA, to me, that's like a tremendous fall from grace. And what a story, and what a fall for Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, I think that obviously he wanted to stay in the NFL. Nobody in the NFL wanted him. Again, it was kind of a weird breakup with the Chiefs. Obviously, he wanted to go be a play caller, which I totally understand. But you go somewhere. When you go with Ron Rivera after he's been there for a few years and he's on maybe the hottest seat in the NFL or one of the hottest seats in the NFL, I mean, that there's a great chance you're probably going to get fired after 1 year, but he still took the job. Offense wasn't terrible. Quarterback was good. Obviously, they've got our Buckeyes. They've got Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin out there. But, again, like when the coaching carousel's spinning around and all these, there's always about a third of the coaches that get fired in the NFL, and they all need offensive coordinators or running back coaches or whatever, and the music stops, and you're heading back to college for a program that, frankly, I think is going to regress substantially under Deshaun Foster because, if I'm an athletic director and you're hiring a position coach, especially a position like running back where you coach one guy on the field, he better be the greatest, smartest, most articulate wonder kid you could ever dream of, because you just don't see very often where a running back coach who's never been a coordinator gets promoted. Now, obviously, he's a legend there. He was a high pick, played for the Carolina Panthers, but that's still a reach to me. And honestly, I would think, Eric Bieniemy would have probably better organizational skills than Deshaun Foster, but that's just my opinion. Again, it doesn't bug me either way, but I think UCLA is going into the toilet. Tony Turley, what is up, brother? Appreciate you. Thanks for being an Ultra member. Thank you for the 50. That is awesome. Thank you so much, brother. Gentlemen, got a lot done at the office today, so good mood. Appreciate that. Thank you for helping out Pay It Forward, as always. Have you had any contact with James Laurinaitis about his opinion on the strength of the linebacker room? He's already developed a recruiting plan. Nevada, OH.
IO.
James is a dear friend. I'm very excited about him. Obviously he knows that. I think as much as everybody's nervous about the O-line, I'm nervous about the linebackers because we've got just no experience. And we've got Cody who's got maybe a couple spot starts when guys were dinged up last year. But outside of that, it's 0 career starts across the board in that room. So, the O-line's got left tackle back, left guard back, center back, or center. You have 2 centers that started basically every game except for one last season. So there's four guys there that have started a lot of football, and then you have Josh Fryer, who they're going to work at right guard and right tackle to try to find the best combination. So that's a lot of experience coming back. Like linebacker room, you've got Cody Simon, and that's it. And you got to figure out Gabe Powers. Do you have to go hit the second portal? Because there's a lot of guys, Nigel Glover, like young guy, Arvell Reese, who's a big dude, who I think eventually could be big enough to play D end. I think he's going to eat his way out of being a linebacker in our offense. Because in our offense, or excuse me, in our defense, excuse me, you got to play a lot of space when you play linebacker. And when you get bigger, it's time to go to defensive end. And I think that's where he's going to ultimately end up. And again, the the giant question mark in the room is, does Sonny Styles come to linebacker? Because again, getting Caleb Downs, with Caleb Downs and Lathan, now I don't know how much Lathan is going to go in spring. Again, I imagine he's going to be limited just because he's, they usually limit the older guys, but he's also coming off a pretty severe injury. So probably won't see much of him, but you still have Malik Hartford. You have a lot of depth back there, so even if Lathan is sat for the whole spring, you still have Caleb Downs and Malik Hartford back there. Sonny's, in my opinion, has got to go to will linebacker. Just has to. In terms of recruiting plan, yeah, James has got a huge recruiting plan. He's a guy that'll go after national players, some of the best players in the country. The NIL is cooking right now, which is good. So I'm just really excited to see what James can do as a full-time guy. Because again, people have used against him that he was a GA and, oh, he's not going to be there. And again, it is kind of, it's not embarrassing, but it's one of those things where, I was a GA and, you're not a real coach. Like you don't feel like a real coach. I mean, you're out there working like a coach. You work as many hours as a coach, but your title is not a coach. Like you don't have a room that you can sign your name to. Because if, it's like I tell people, like, look, if the team could leave you home for an away game and not a ton would change, then you're not really that valuable. Like they could leave the GAs at home. They can't leave the O-line coach. They can't leave the linebackers coach. That's just kind of how it is. So James having his own room, I think he's going to shoot for the stars. I think that he's a guy that can sell Ohio State as well as anybody in the history of the program. And I think that his name's got a lot of cachet. He's a guy that, people recognize, he won major trophies here. He's a 3-time All-American here. So, and again, he's ready to grind. He's ready to, make Ryan Day look good. Like he wants to, say, hey, Ryan, you won't regret hiring me. I'm going to go to the wall for you. And, I'm going to, I think James is a guy that could be a coordinator in a few years and a head coach in a few years because he's that kind of a personality. He's the kind of guy that'll wow athletic directors in an interview. But it all starts with becoming the best linebacker coach in the United States of America, which I think he can be. Nevada, your thoughts on James's opinion on the strength of the linebacker room and his recruiting plan?
Well, look, I'd heard from a really higher up in OSU administration we were talking about the whole Ryan Day decision on James and how long it took and, kind of how that drug out a little bit longer than some people thought. And he said one of the key things that was when James went to Day and told him, he goes, I will be the best recruiter on your staff. I'll be the best. And, when you say that on a staff with guys like Tim Walton, with guys like Brian Hartline, that's a big statement. And coming from James, who's not a guy, who's not a braggadocio guy, he's not a talker, he's not a guy that's going out there and running his mouth a lot. But I think that really made an impact on Ryan because Ryan has prized recruiting above all else. Not to the exclusion of technical capability and coaching ability, but it's like a necessary ingredient. You have to be able to recruit. And I think when James kind of threw it down like that, it might have been the moment when he got the job. And I think for him, I totally agree with you. I think you're going to see us in on a bunch. Not that we're not in on national guys now, but I think it's going to go to another level. And I think we're going to be in on every national guy now. And James is certainly attacking it that way. And James, his recruiting sheet is long and he's been at it since he got the job. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to be outworked. He's not a guy that's, going to come in and get the job and kind of rest on his laurels or sit back. I mean, he's a make it happen kind of guy. So from a recruiting standpoint, he's got it dialed in. Now, from a coaching standpoint, he's got his hands full because you're right. We don't really have that many returning starts in the linebacker room right now. And as much as I love Cody Simon, I thought I at one point said I thought he was going to be the next great linebacker at Ohio State. And injuries have really kind of derailed him, but he's hanging out and he's been there. But we're not returning 50 starts at linebacker. We're not returning veteran All-Americans. So I think this is going to be a great challenge for James from a coaching standpoint this year with the young guys, and from a recruiting standpoint. We're going to get a really good chance to see what James Laurinaitis is all about. It's the perfect year to do it, and I definitely think he's up for the challenge, and so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and like I said, I love James. A quick life hack on James: spelling his last name is always tough. So I remembered, I said, James, your name is like Laura, Laur, then it's like In-N-Out Burger, then it's AI, like artificial intelligence, and then it's Tis, like Tis the season. So when you work on a message board and you have to spell funky last names, like not everybody can be Ryan Day, which is like the easiest thing in the world to spell. It's phonetic. But James, I figured, for a lot of you guys that are on BuckeyeScoop.com and spelling it, he's like Ed Warner. Like those are probably the two most misspelled last names in the history of football. But I'm just super excited for him because, again, I know how he works. I know how bad he wants this. I know how good he's going to do. And there's some guys like I wouldn't say that about. And again, that's probably why, there's guys that love me, guys that don't love me. I don't really care. But I'm also exceptionally honest when it comes to evaluating former players and, how well they could traject into coaching. Because a lot of these guys that are my former teammates and former Ohio State players, they all want to get into coaching because they see how big the salaries are. But they don't want to put in the work. They don't want to grind. They don't want to be great at it. And I just know that they're going to go kaput, But James is different. James is built different. Like he wants to be, he's like Vrabes. Like Vrabel, I knew he would be really good just because of how thorough he was, how smart he was. Playing for Belichick for that long, it's impossible not to just be wicked smart and work ethic and know kind of how to do things the right way, how to carry yourself. Even like being around Tom Brady, I think it makes you, it kind of shows you like the code. Like there's a certain code in football on how to do things, and Vrabel and Fickle were great examples of they did things the right way. They worked really hard. They're tough as nails, exceptionally well trained, conditioned. They're beasts. Those guys are working out 6 a.m. every day. It was crazy. Ashley Baker, thanks for the deuce. Appreciate you. If you have a question, toss that in the chat. Thank you for being a part of this tonight. Philip Pouliot, thank you for the 5. Got the show on while driving through Brooklyn, New York on 278. Keep up the great work, gents. Appreciate you, my man. Be careful. I don't know what your weather's like, but we got a bunch of snow in Ohio. So if it is slick or cold, be careful out on the road. Nevada, I'm just so excited for spring ball. It's about 2 weeks away. Again, if you guys are on BuckeyeScoop.com, you're going to get the insight on what's going on in practice. We've got very, very good eyeballs in there checking out what's going on. I think there's a good buzz about this team. They've been putting the screws from the 6 a.m. workouts have been tough. They had one yesterday. The guys got off the cruise ship and they got to go get their brains beaten by Mickey, which is good. They generally do 2 different types of 6 a.m.s. They do one that's kind of like military, kind of basic training stuff, up downs and that type of stuff. And then they do one that's like a speed work day, agility day. They're both, the military one's usually a little bit more of a ball buster than the speed work, but they're getting a lot of extra work in. These guys, there's a lot of guys on the team that have a lot at stake, and the competition is really high at positions. Who are some guys that you're excited to hear about competing at certain spots? Because obviously right tackle is red hot. The second linebacker spot is red hot. Are there other guys at positions? I think even receiver is going to be really competitive. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the receivers for sure. Speaking of the receiver, I think a few of the receivers, we're going to give you a little inside baseball. If you're around Hyde Park this evening, if you're kind of wandering around and trying to decide what you want to do for dinner or something like that, you might want to stop by there. There might be some familiar faces around there. If you want to go there, some people huddled behind New York strip steaks and double lobster tails or something like that. So Hyde Park might be the place to be tonight if you're looking for dining or looking for a little bit of entertainment. But no, look, all the talk about J.J. Smith. I want to see J.J. Smith. J.J. Smith, for people that know, he might be the highest regarded wide receiver recruit ever to come to Ohio State, ever to come anywhere. And yeah. I want to see it. I want to see it. I've always been a big fan of seeing those things special. I've said it many times. I feel like, when special events happen, like the Miracle on Ice or things that are kind of once in a lifetime. And you're like, man, I want to experience it. I want to be part of it. I don't want to be robbed of that moment. Well, I feel with JJ Smith, I mean, you're talking about a guy that could be like a generational talent at wide receiver. Um, and we're seeing him in an offense with an experienced quarterback, a veteran quarterback, and Chip Kelly calling the offense. And Emeka, who is also the proverbial brick blank house right now, because that guy has been putting in the work
Mm-hmm.
over the winter. And you want to talk about body transformation, guys? Look at Emeka. When you see Emeka, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, this guy. He looks like I mean, I don't even know who I would describe that he works. He looks kind of like Steve Smith, prime Steve Smith, where he's just jacked. He's just thick. He's out there. It's clear that he's taking it seriously this year. That last year was not the kind of year that he wanted to have. But seeing Emeka on the field with Carnell Tate, with Brandon Ennis, and with J.J. Smith, man, I want to see it. I want to see those guys go up and catch the ball. I want to go up and see those guys do their thing. I'm a big fan of just raw athleticism, and those guys have it in abundance. So that'd probably be the thing I'm most excited about seeing in the spring.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to throw on a couple of these workout videos. It's always kind of fun to watch these guys squatting, see these guys getting after a little bit. Yeah, I'm excited to see. The line obviously is near and dear to my heart just because I've lived it, I've coached it. Seeing what they do at right tackle is going to be really, really exciting. I think the Sonny Styles thing is, I think, the biggest question on the whole defense because, I mean, really, other than Will Linebacker and the second defensive tackle, and really, I mean, second defensive tackle with Ty Hamilton, I mean, really the third defensive tackle. Like, who's the first guy off the bench, and who's the first guy off the bench at DN between Kenyatta and Caden Curry? Does Edric Houston get some burn? I heard a lot of good stuff about Edric Houston today. He's a really, really funny kid. He's a guy that a lot of the guys like, but he's a monster in the weight room now. He does not play around in that weight room. I got a super chat here. Mark Henthorn, thank you for the 5. Thanks, guys, for all you do. OH, Nevada.
I-O.
A question: with Sonny being so athletic, what about moving him to tight end? I just think that would be as big a waste as he was at safety, and he wasn't a waste because he was okay, but I just think that that's just not where he's built to be. I think he's a defensive player in the NFL. I think he'd be a phenomenal tight end, but is that something he wants to do in an offense that doesn't really accentuate the tight end very much? I mean, I just feel like you're kind of a lost guy. I mean, the guy in that room that needs to get going is Jelani. Jelani's the guy. He's got to be the guy this year. He's got to be the dude that's going to be kind of the warhorse. Because again, I mean, G. Scott will likely start. I'm sure he'll probably play the most snaps just because he's veteran. He's been around for a long time. He came in with Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he's like the last guy that's actually still here. But I think that you've got to really look at what can you get out of Jelani Thurman. That's the guy that, if I'm Chip Kelly, if I'm Ryan Day, if I'm Mickey Marotti, Keenan Bailey, Hartline, like, you got to get that guy going. Like, he's got to become a force this year as a sophomore. And he started the bowl game. Again, we do these weird things where he starts the game, plays like 5 snaps, and then he's basically done, which is weird. But I think that the tight end room is, I think it's not even close. It's the weakest room on the entire team right now. Just because, Cade's gone. And we've got a lot of older guys that haven't really played. Now, maybe they can prove me wrong and they can really turn up and get after it a little bit. But, the only reason people don't talk about tight ends more is because we only play one at a time generally. And they're just kind of an afterthought. They're not like linebackers where you have to have good linebackers to have good defense. It's impossible not to. You need it from a leadership perspective. You need it from all levels, running game, coordinating the coverages. Like, I mean, linebackers are so critical to your defense. Very, very, very rarely will you see a great defense that doesn't have just outstanding linebacker play. So tight end kind of slides under the radar just because, people don't really care about tight ends at Ohio State very much. But Cade Stover made it an effective spot. Jeremy Ruckert was good. And who's going to be that guy this year? Can it be G? Maybe. I mean, I just think that the blocking was so poor last year out of G that, he's got to get a lot better. And he got better as the season went on when I was studying him. But, to be like a true, dominant running game, you have to have a guy that can hold the point running the ball at tight end. And maybe G can become that. I mean, he's getting more and more reps in it. And there's going to be a lot of heat on Keenan Bailey. I know he just got extended, but he's got to get his guys to block better. Nevada, your thoughts on the tight end room?
JT Tumalo, put him at tight end, man. You see him
Oh God.
play him tight end in high school. I mean, he was the true. I mean, as good a defensive end as he might be a better tight end. So let him go both ways. Rotate him a little bit more on the defensive line, and problem solved at tight end room.
I think JT would be, if not a Pro Bowl, he'd be an NFL starter at tight end for sure. Big guy, basketball player. I watched him play tight end on his high school tape, but he was better at tight end than he was D end. But when a kid wants to play D end, you're not going to put him at tight end. But if you put him at tight end, man, he'd be all Big Ten, in my opinion, and he'd be a monstrous blocker. Again, I want guys to block. And people, I had someone say, "Oh, well, they don't come here to block." I'm like, well, you better. If we're going to win a national championship, you better get rid of that attitude quick. David Crow, thank you for the 15, and thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member. Appreciate you. Like the positive updates on Will Howard. I do too, because Will Howard has kind of become my guy. And, I like when it gets cold and windy and rainy and snowy and crappy, having a big monster quarterback, I think is the only way to go. And you guys see, when you want to, if you got a gun to your head, it's like I said, leading up to the Super Bowl, like who's going to win the Super Bowl? Well, I'm like, it's Brock Purdy versus Pat Mahomes. If everything else is equal, like give me Pat Mahomes by a landslide. And sure as can be, when they go to overtime and they give Mahomes the ball on the second drive, it's like he goes down and wins it because he's really, really good and he's ice cold on the pocket. And then we need Will Howard he's not going to be Mahomes, but he could be really good, really good. And I think he's a better athlete than Mahomes. And Mahomes, it's like we always talk about, like he's got a big dumpy dad bod, but that dude can scoot, and he converts a lot of first downs by pocket play breaks down. His O-line hangs in there in pass pro, and then all of a sudden magically, like he can scramble and get some yardage. Excited to see the offense come together on the field. So are we. Will Howard, along with our back end receivers, are going to give defenses nightmares this year in Nevada. Nevada. I mean, your thoughts on because again, this thing's all coming together. It's good to hear the update from Will Howard. Again, I know Devin Brown's not going to go out without a fight, but Will Howard was brought in for a reason. He got a huge NIL deal to come here. He's the guy. Let's just be serious for a second. But your thoughts on Will Howard? Because again, going into spring ball, that's going to be really exciting to see him mesh with Trey and Quinshawn and that O-line and see his leadership and his athleticism running the show at Ohio State.
Well, look, with Will Howard, my thing was, like, I wanted Will Howard to be good, but I didn't know how well he'd mesh with the guys. I didn't know how well he would command respect. I didn't know how well he'd kind of come in to the room, because that's a delicate dance, and you never know. Nobody can ever tell you before that happens how that's going to end. And so you're kind of keeping your fingers crossed on that stuff. But that stuff matters, because when guys go in there and they're cocky, they rub people the wrong way, factions start developing, people feel like guys got crossed over. Man, that can tear a locker room apart at any level faster than anything. And so for Will, to hear that he's a guy that people have immediately gravitated to, that he's immediately a leader, that he's immediately a guy that, that the other guys look up to, ask questions about. And, the fact that he's vibing so well with Devin Brown, I mean, to me, that just speaks to his character, that this guy's, he's a good guy. He's not out there just, killing Devin or doing whatever. And I couldn't be more excited about Will Howard, but I'm excited about him because what I'm hearing from the other players. Because if I wasn't hearing that, I'd still be excited about him athletically, but I'd have my reservations about him from a leadership perspective. But right now, I have no qualms about his leadership ability with this team. He's already leading this team in workouts, and that's a great spot for a guy that's incoming to do. And I think it bodes really well for the future.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's huge to hear that. I've been around quarterbacks that weren't leaders, they weren't vocal, they weren't whatever. I mean, I've been around them as players, coaches in the NFL, college football, and it doesn't work. If your quarterback's not a leader, it's really, really an uphill climb to get to where you need to go as a team, because he's the guy that touches the ball every play. He's the guy that has to look the guys in the eye and get guys going. Again, it's easy for me to say that because I lived it. I was a captain in my senior year as a tackle, and when you're offensive lineman, you can only do so much. I mean, I could pancake my guy every single time, throw him on the ground, but if the quarterback can't throw it and our running backs can't run it and our receivers can't catch it, it doesn't matter. You need guys that can go put points on the board Obviously, you have to block them. That's the most important part of the deal. But the skill guys are the ones that really can go out and make huge differences. You just gotta make sure you can just do the best you can up front. But I really I like what I'm hearing about Will Howard. Pooh Beard 12, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my man. Chip Kelly had been a head coach consecutively since 2009, so he is clearly comfortable calling plays from the sideline. Any word on him going to the booth? That is a great question. I have no idea on that. I mean, I think that, in a perfect world, he's going to be where he's most comfortable, and he's been down on the field for his whole career. I will try to go see if he's been up in the booth when he was working for Mike Bellotti as his OC prior to '07, I believe. That's a great question. And honestly, they probably don't know yet. I think that, again, Nevada and I are huge, huge proponents of being up in the booth when you're in college because, in the NFL, they've got tablets, they've got technology. For whatever reason in college, they still act like they're in the Stone Age. So they don't have the little Microsoft Surface tablets. They don't have the photographs. There's literally a printer on the sideline that'll print off photos, and you go over them on the sideline with your quarterback. So that's why you see a lot of NFL guys that are down on the field calling the offense because you want to have a guy like Bill O'Brien was down on the field last year classically yelling at Mac Jones and Bailey Zipp and going through the photos and that type of deal. So I honestly don't think that's been worked out yet. I think that in Ryan's dream scenario, Chip would probably go up, but Chip's been down for so long that I don't know. And again, that thing can change week to week, but that's something I'm sure they're going to work on during spring football. Nevada, your thoughts? Where would you like to see Chip Kelly at?
Well, I'd love to see him in the box, and I hear he's going to be in the box. So I would be surprised if it was anything but that. Like you said, I'm sure they'll work it out during the spring. They'll see what they can do. But I have heard point blank that the plan is to have him in the box, and I think that's the right move. And also for Ryan too, you don't want to have too many Papa Bears on the sideline. I mean, he's already kind of given it up in terms of being a former head coach, play caller that's now just going to head coach. I'm not sure if he wants another Papa Bear right there next to him, and I think having him in the box solves about 14 different issues and makes Ohio State better. So I'm cautiously optimistic that I've got good info on that.
Well, I think that having him in the box makes a ton of sense because if you need someone to get with the quarterback and get stuff organized in between series, you've got Finch, who's been here for a long time, who Ryan really trusts. You've got Ryan. Those guys can both go, coach up Will Howard or Julian Sain or Devin Brown, whoever's in the game. So I don't think it's as much of a necessity. And again, if you're just on a 1-for-1 flip, I mean, Corey Dennis was up in the box last year. Corey Dennis obviously took an analyst job at Ole Miss this past week. Credit to Menace to Sports, Zach Smith, Chris Drew. Those guys broke that a couple days ago. So congrats to them for breaking that story. But I think for that one-to-one swap, I think you have to put Chip up there. I mean, the only other thought would be to put, you can't really put a receiver coach up there. So you can't put Brian Hartline up there because he has to coach 3 or 4 guys, 5 guys. He has a big group that he has to coach. You can't put Justin Fry up there because the line coach has to be down on the field. Obviously, Keenan Bailey can go up because it's just one tight end. You can usually get Brian Hartline or one of the QCs to work with the tight ends. So I would venture to say that a lot of money Chip Kelly's going to be up now that I kind of do the math around it. Because Brian Hartline can't go up. The receivers coach has got to be down on the field. And so it'll be interesting. Because again, like you said, that's a great point, Pooh Beard. Like Chip's been on the ground for a long time calling the plays. And I just think that for Ryan to do what he wants to do and go where he wants to go, I think that, having people that are veterans that can tell you what's going on, who you trust up in the box is really critical. Again, I sat up there when I was a player, and I know how valuable I was just because I could give a good picture. And you have to be very, very, very accurate when you're talking to the line coach. If you've got whoever's down there helping with the quarterbacks, you got to make sure that you're giving them an accurate photo of what we're really seeing, what coverages we're getting, what blitzes we're getting, stunts. Because that's just so critical. Because I mean, again, a lot of times in between series, guys are, when I was working with Ed Warner, he'd be down, with the grease board and the markers, and he'd be drawing up the defense, and I'd be telling him exactly where everybody was. and then exactly where everybody went, like, and what happened on the play and who made the play. And so then when those players are sitting down there, you got to remember those players are on like, adrenaline mountain. They're in the game. It's loud. You're playing some guy that's 315 pounds trying to kill them. So they're all over the place. So to have like a nice, clear, distinct voice describing what happened, and then those guys, and sometimes you get a little foggy out there and you don't remember what happened. So to be able to refresh it for them is really, really critical. And that was something that I was excellent about because, again, when you're up there, if you're good, you watch the play live, and then you watch the play on the big screen on the jumbotron at the open end of the stadium, and then you look up at the TV. They got ESPN on the TV, so you can get 3 good looks at it, and then you can draw in what happened and just be ultra sure, because that's so important for making adjustments in game. But that's a great question, Pooh Beard. I appreciate you, my man. Jay Pope, my Hoover Viking in the building. Who starts at right guard this year? Hinsman or Tish Kabola or others, assuming Fryer's at right tackle? Appreciate you, homies. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. If you put a gun to my head today, I'd say it's Fryer at right guard. I feel like they want it to be Luke, and it's going to be up to Luke might get the first crack. I think the hardest part with Luke is he's young, so they might try Zen Mikulski first crack at right tackle. I mean, you remember this time last year, Zen was the starting right tackle like at this time last year. Now, obviously, Josh Simmons showed up after spring ball. They bumped Fryer over back to right tackle where he was a lot more natural, a lot more fluid. And they put Josh Simmons at left tackle, which that was their best tackle pairing by far, in my opinion. So, I think it's going to be really critical for Luke, for George Fitzpatrick, who's doing really well. He's getting real big. Tigra is as big as a house. I mean, is this comes down to, can these guys pass block, or can Carson Hinsman, is he big enough and sturdy enough to hang in there right guard and you keep Fryer out there? So I mean, these guys are going to have big time reps, man. I'm telling you, this is going to be one of those ones where I think it'll grow exponentially, because Josh Simmons and Donnie Jackson are going to develop a real coordination together, playing on the left side together. Your center is going to be between Carson Hinsman and Seth McLaughlin. And then the right side is going to be kind of like a mix and match, and just see who's the most proficient, who grades out the highest, who's got the best chemistry. Because that's the thing no one talks about. Like, you got to have a good chemistry between your right guard, right tackle, left tackle, center, left guard, center, right guard. Because when you're doing double team blocks, like, there's a coordination and a chemistry that has to develop there. It's just like, it's like a pitcher and a catcher. It's like, any 2 people that have to work together, they get a feel for how each other works. So I think, for me, man, I think that that's going to be fascinating to see the rotation. I hated the rotation they did last fall, where they were doing 2 groups and mishmash, and one guy a day would be with the first team, the next day would be with the third team. Made absolutely no sense. I thought it was stupid. I thought it slowed the development of the line, and I thought that they were slow out of the gates because of it. Because eventually you got to pick a guy, and you got to figure out, okay, we got 4 of the guys set. Let's rotate the right tackle and figure out who we're going to go with. But eventually you just got to go with what your instinct tells you, and let these guys develop through training camp and through the first, the Akron game, the first couple of games of the season. Nevada, in your opinion, who do you think starts at right guard this year?
I think it's going to be George Fitzpatrick. I'm telling you, I know it's kind of a dark horse. I know you mentioned him, but dude, we talk about those body transformations. We talk about those guys who've added the weight, added the good weight. He's a big old boy. I mean, he's a big old stout right tackle. And I do think Fryer slides inside. And, then you're basically going to be in a situation where you've got guys like McLaughlin and Hinsman. You've got 2 guys, like you said, between them have 28 starts last year at center. You're going to be able to find one good center out of that, and a quality backup as well. But my money's on George. But, like you said, Zen was the starter this year last time. They really like Luke Montgomery a lot. I think Tigra is better on the inside personally than I think he'd struggle a little bit there on the outside. But gun to my head, I'm going with George as my starting right tackle. Final answer, and reserve the right to change my mind based upon more information.
Yeah, I totally agree. Dave Paterick, thanks for the 20. Appreciate you, brother. Scoop golf outing might go crazy this year. I don't know if any of the people in the chat golf, but if you guys want to golf with us, we have a nice golf outing up at Youngstown Country Club. Appreciate you, brother. Hope you and Janet are having a nice night tonight. Ashley Baker, thank you for the deuce. My first post. Oh, excellent. Appreciate you. Thank you for being part of the Scoop family. And this is a great post. My first Ward Manuel is Jabba the Hutt. That's a great first post. Nevada, he does look like Jabba the Hutt, doesn't he?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's hard not to think of Princess Leia there in the little outfit with the on the chain and Jabba sitting there eating like the little vermin or something. Whenever I see Ward Manuel, I mean, it's disgusting. I mean, Ward is definitely disgusting. And the more I see the way that he runs that program too, um, yeah, it's the Jabba the Hutt is definitely that's a great comparable. We got to put those guys side by side. I'm not sure if I've ever seen Jabba the Hutt and Ward Manuel at the same time, so they could be the same person. There's no question about that.
Yeah, he is. He's a big dude. But yeah, it's like the more it's like as bad as he looks, like his internal, you know, conscience, it might actually be worse, which is crazy after the stuff that we reported. And I think that the walls are starting to cave in because again, when it's not about like when the locals get restless, because the fans can always hate you, hate the athletic director, hate the coach, whatever. Um, but when the big money people, the regents, the board of trustees, the people that are the real power players turn on you, that is when you can start playing the Reigns of Castamere from Game of Thrones, which is the song that the Lannisters played at the Red Wedding, and everybody got killed. David Paterick, thank you for the 20 again. I appreciate you, my man. I appreciate all you do for me and for Nevada and for Buckeye Scoop. David is he's the first member ever, BuckeyeScoop.com. So I appreciate you, my man. Is there any other program that has been one or two plays away from a championship? More than us? I don't think so. I mean, we've been snake bit. We've had some really, really weird games. Like I go back to that 18 team with Purdue. Obviously our defense wasn't where it needed to be, but I mean, how many games did we miss the playoffs or just miss doing something substantial because of a couple of plays? Obviously we talk about the 05 team at nauseum just because we blew the Texas game. We blew the Penn State game. That was a team that by the end of the year we were as good as anybody, but that doesn't matter, So I think we've had a lot. I mean, Nevada going through 15. That Michigan State loss. Obviously, that was a team that easily could have won a national championship. They're probably better than the 14 team. But your thoughts on that? Because man, we've been real close a lot of times. But the good thing for Ohio State fans and Buckeye Scoop fans is with the 12-team playoff. I mean, those that 18 team, that 15 team, they're going to be in the dance and they're going to be dancing. They might have to go play an extra playoff game because they're not in the top four, but there's not going to be as much sadness as there has been. Your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, nobody's been closer than Ohio State, and it's just really kind of a testament to what we've talked about this sustained excellence at Ohio State. And as a fan, how spoiled we've been by not really, having a downtime. Everybody else in college football has had a downtime in the past 30 years, and we had like a down season. But we've been close so many times. We've been able to. It's hard to win national championships, but as you said, a little slip up here or a little thing is not going to be the thing that determines it anymore, because we're going to be in the dance. You pretty much pencil us in virtually every year, and for Ohio State, I think it's a great thing, given where we are in the with our depth, given where we are in terms of our experience, given where we are with our coaching staff. I think a 12-team playoff is right where we want to be. So I'm very excited about that.
Now, here's my question to you. If you're a team like the 15 team or the 18 team, these teams that end up with one strange loss, and you miss the Big Ten championship, is that an advantage to save your body, get an extra week of rest? Or is it a disadvantage because you basically probably are going to have to make that game up on the road or hosting a playoff game? In your opinion, it's almost like you rob Peter to pay Paul if you don't play the Big Ten championship game where you could go play, in Oregon or a really good team. But then, in all likelihood, if you're not a conference champion, you're not going to get one of the 4 byes. Is it an advantage to dodge the conference championship game and go on the road and host a home playoff game?
I think it is, and that scenario is not crazy. I mean, a lot of teams that where you got those 2 good teams in a conference, and one of them makes the conference championship, but I guess they've changed it now with the SEC and the Big Ten, where they've gotten rid of the division, so you're going with that 1-2 type of situation. So you really have to be the third team in your conference to do that. And I think if you're the third team in your conference, are you really going to be one of the top 8 teams in the country? And I think that, you know, I don't know about that, but I do think it's an advantage if you can avoid the conference championship game. There's just not a whole lot of equity in terms of playing that conference championship game. There's a lot of downside for sure, but I think look, I think there's about 9 different unintended consequences of this 12-team playoff and the 5-7 setup that we haven't even considered yet. And as a college football fan, I'm just telling you, every preconceived notion you have about the season, you need to cast aside now because it's totally different. It's not about sustained excellence. It's not about being perfect. It's about being hot at the end. And we're all going to have to retrain our brain as we watch the season because college football is not the same. And I'm not saying better. I'm not saying worse, but it's definitely different. And 2024 is going to be a learning experience for all of us.
And see, I think you made a great point that you probably might not have even realized that you're making is how, the dissolving of the divisions of not having the East and West any longer, I think is huge because again, if you don't make that playoff, you're the third best team in the Big Ten. So again, you're not in all likelihood going to get a home playoff game unless there's some sort of, unless you just have 2, undefeated schools at the top, and then you got a 1-loss team as the third team. Where in the past, when it was East West and the team coming out of the East was us, undefeated or with 1 loss, or Michigan undefeated, or Penn State, whatever. And then that team on the other side's got 3 losses or 4 losses or whatever. I think that totally changes the math because again, like there's been years where when we stuck into the playoffs a few times, like in 16 when they took us over Penn State after Penn State had beaten us. Like that was a year where, I think it would have been, it was advantageous to skip the championship, and I think that's something that'll be really interesting to see going forward. We got another super chat. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thank you for the 5 as well. Although Coach Day doesn't use tight ends a ton, how did we go from good to great tight ends to where we are now? Who is at fault? Nevada, your thoughts on tight ends? Again, we had a nice run of some really good tight ends with Hireman, Vanette. Marcus Ball was serviceable, bounced around the league a little bit. Obviously, Jeremy Ruckert was probably the highest rated tight end we've ever gotten. Was a mid-round guy to the Jets. And now, Cade will likely go probably, I'd say, 3rd, 4th roundish. Now, it's a little dark in there. In terms of the talent, I think there's just a lot of unknown potential, basically. That they got Keenan Bailey's got his work cut out for him. Your thoughts on the tight end room and how it's we're a little short on star power this year, potentially.
Well, I'm going to, and this may be a hot take, but I'm going to throw this out there. I think it's all been a function of how we use the tight end, and I'm talking about. I believe that our guys are talented enough to do a lot of the things that other guys do in other offenses. We just don't use them that way. And so as a result, they're not featured that way. As a result, they're not as highly regarded. As a result, we don't have as many guys that are with the accolades. But I believe the guys in our room could do it. We just haven't done it. And so for now, with Chip Kelly coming in, is it different? It's totally different. You have to remember, Ryan Day was the offense. He was the judge, jury, and executioner on the offense for better or worse for the past 5 years, 6 years, whatever it's been since he's been here. Now it's Chip Kelly's in the room. And if you don't think that's a difference, it's a huge difference. I mean, you've got a different guy calling the plays, you've got different philosophies, and you've got a guy that probably Ryan Day, at the bare minimum, looks up to him and holds his opinions with the same level of esteem that he does his own, and probably has more respect, probably defers to him in these situations. So is that going to be a different? Yeah, I think it's going to be completely different. And I think the tight ends are going to look different as a result of that. So I'm like I said, maybe a hot take. I haven't think it's been ability. I think it's been utilization, but that's just my view on the matter.
I think you're right. I mean, honestly, I think that if I'm a tight end, my kid's a tight end, he's going to Iowa. Period, point blank. If Kirk Ferentz is there, that is a place where it's a pipeline. Obviously, the offense is atrocious, but nobody has got a run of tight ends going into the league like those guys do. I mean, Laporta, unbelievable this year. Pro Bowler as a rookie. Kittle, Hawkinson. I mean, just the list goes on and on. Dallas Clark going all the way back to the olden days. I've never seen a crew put that many tight ends into the league, but I think you like you said, it's a function of what do they do on offense, how good are their other skill guys? Because the problem with Ohio State, man, is like when you're the tight end, like you're easily the fourth best receiver on the field behind the top three receivers, and then you've got a Pro Bowl level running back in Trey Henderson, so that's a lot of mouths to feed, so it gets really, really tough when you're sitting there and you're just like, God bless. Like, how do we feed all these guys, keep them all happy, get them their touches? It's a tough game. So the tight end gets left out a lot of blocking. I think Will Kazmarek is a guy that could be really interesting to see what he does in the spring. Obviously, it's a big jump up to playing in the Big Ten from the MAC at OU. But when I watched him, he's got some tools now. I mean, he's a better blocker than anybody we got in that room. Jelani, if Jelani put his mind to it, he could be as good as any tight end we've ever had at Ohio State. Outside of the guys that are, Pro Football Hall of Fame type guys. Like, but I mean, in the last 20 years, Jelani could easily be the most talented tight end we have. But he's got to really put his nose to the grindstone. And a lot of these guys have to figure out if they want to be football players or they want to be, divas. Like some of these guys don't like to get their nails dirty. They don't want to put their nose in it. They don't want to put their face in someone's chest and block a guy. And I think that, if you want to like go impress some of these coaches, don't be scared now. Some of these guys, they don't want to get hurt, or I might get a boo-boo if I go out and knock some guy's block off. But, if I got a new offensive coordinator and I got, new eyeballs, like I want them to be like, who is this guy smoking that safety, on a crack block, or who's this guy dominating a defensive end at the point on inside zone? Like those are the kind of things that can make you stand out. Because I've sat in those film rooms when we're watching the practice tape as a staff, and you'll see that, and then you'll see that flash. You'll be like, that's the guy we need to get more reps for because he cares. He doesn't block like he's allergic to contact. Because some guys are. Some guys just can't do it. There's some guys that just physically just aren't good enough to do it. But a guy like Jelani can literally do anything that a great tight end could do in the NFL. But he's got to get that nose to the grindstone a little bit. So, well, Nevada, this is a really good show. Well, any final thoughts? I think we can wrap this thing up. I know that you've got some UFC stuff you want to watch. Great show, folks. Go ahead.
Yeah, appreciate it. Some great UFC action tonight. You want some free MMA picks? Go to Dagestan Poppy, PAPI, Twitter. Got some free picks on there. Got some bets coming up in the card. Already hit our first one on Yoel Romero today on a big Bellator bet, big underdog that we hit on a multi-unit bet. So if you want some free MMA action, go to Dagestan Poppy on Twitter.
Dagestan Poppy. What's the genesis
Poppy
of that? What's the genesis of that, Nevada?
Poppy means he likes, and he really likes those Dagestan fighters. So Dagestan Poppy.
So for those of you that aren't big UFC fans, like Dagestan, that's where Habib's from. That's where, I mean, it's like the hotbed for great fighters. I'm just going to toss the card up on here real quick. There's Dagestan Poppy's card for tonight. If you guys are watching the UFC Mexico full card. So there's the lines. Again, you can track his action on Twitter. If you follow Dagestan Poppy, he is excellent. And on the site where they track the action, he has a long list of well done, up a ton of units year over year. So it's not like he's a guy that he has a bad run and he deletes his account. So he's got a lot of tracked action. So follow Dagestan Poppy if you like to make money and bet these UFC fights. So, well, as always, appreciate you guys. Again, thank you for kicking it with us. As always, great show again tonight. Thank you guys for hanging out with us on Saturday night. Hope you guys are having a great Saturday night. I'm going to go watch some of that UFC card. But again, we thank you guys so much for all you guys do for this channel. Again, it's a big show because you guys made it one, as always. It's all about you guys. We just try to bring the heat every single night. Even when it's a little chilly in Ohio, we want to heat it up and have a big show for you guys. So we appreciate you guys kicking it with us. Thank you to Akeem. Thank you to Devin, our two moderators. Also, Kim, my wife, is in there moderating. So be nice to all three of them. They're very, very exceptional people. Love all three of you guys. Thank you for all you do, keeping the chat on and popping and lit. So thank you guys, as always. With that being said, if you enjoyed this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, and also click that little alert bell. You'll get an alert on your phone when we go live, so you never miss a show. So thank you guys all. Again, we appreciate you guys so much for everything that you guys do for this channel. Spread the word. If you have friends that love Ohio State, neighbors, coworkers, people you hang out with, let them know about Buckeye Scoop. It's growing exponentially, and it's all thanks to word of mouth and us putting out great content that is driven by and for you guys. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys. Shout out to my boys in Southern Ohio. All my Portsmouth boys are in the building. Portsmouth, Gallipolis, Ironton. Love my Southern Ohio folks. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you to my Northeast Ohio folks. Thank you to people all through the state of Ohio, the great state of Ohio, great state of Florida as well. A lot of Floridians in here. Thank you guys. Texas, Georgia, Florida, Colorado, all over the world. I mean, you guys are everywhere. So shout out where you guys are watching from in the comments. I always love to see the cool destinations you guys are at. So that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. Talk to you guys tomorrow. We'll be going at 7 tomorrow. Be ready to rock. Go Bucks.